flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And would you take a roll call, please?
Sure. McManus.
Here.
Augustinelli.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Robertson.
Here.
DeGood.
Here.
Budge.
Here.
Racine.
Here. And this being our first meeting of the year, first item of business is election of officers. And I have found it a privilege to be chairing this group for several years, but I think it's time to pass the baton and make some changes. And I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Joe McManus for president, or for chair of the planning commission for this year.
I'd support that.
Time for change.
It's more than just several years, though.
I don't count him. He's not going anywhere.
You're sticking around, right?
Oh, yeah, I just got reappointed. I think so did you, Joe, so you're not getting rid of me. I'll just not have the gavel anymore. So let's call that motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
They
And then we
will
got-
nominate you for assistant chair.
Well, I was thinking maybe we ought to work on a succession plan, and I was thinking maybe Chris would be interested in that. And seems like you've chaired meetings in your other lives, Parks and Rec and that sort of thing. Sure. Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
I'd be willing.
I'll second
Unless,
that.
I don't want to step in front of anybody else, though.
That sounds fine by you, Joe?
Yeah.
All right, I'll make that motion that Chris DeGood be elected as vice chair for 2024.
I'll support that.
Any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay? There's no nays, that passes. You're it.
Well, thank you all.
Joe Robertson, you okay with secretary?
Secretary,
It's a
Yeah.
real rough job.
I know, but somebody's got to do it, right?
There's not one tonight.
You willing to do it again?
Yeah, if I have to.
We'll make the motion that Joe Robertson be the secretary.
Support.
Any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Congratulations.
Joey McManus,
gang.
the gavel passes too. It's your meeting.
Joe, I look forward to you attending all of the meetings this year, maybe with nothing to do.
I don't miss very many, that's for sure. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate the support and the confidence. So, in the the board, thank you. Well, the first item on our agenda this evening is public comment. So we have public comment 2 times at every meeting, at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. We also have a public hearing tonight on the commercial housing district rezoning. So we'd consider, if you have comments on that you wait until we're discussing that, potentially that topic. But at this time, we'll open up public comment. If anybody has anything they'd like to bring to our attention or talk about, now's an opportunity for you to come forward and do that. Just like you do
The usual.
There's no, they're not beating a trail, so we will close public comment, the first one anyway, and move on to review and approval of the agenda. We do have the amended agenda. They moved election of officers up top. There's just one thing I had, it's not a big deal, item 10, if we could change that to items for the next agenda, should say the 24th of January, not the
Yes.
10th.
Good catch.
So, that's the only thing I had. So if anybody has any other corrections or any conflicts of interest, now would be the time to state those.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Motion made and supported to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Minutes. Yeah, in your packet were the minutes from the December 13th regular meeting, our last meeting. We've had a chance to review those. Any questions, corrections, or things you'd like to talk about in those minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion, the minutes be received.
Support. Motion made and supported to approve the minutes from December 13th. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Correspondence, John, I see one on our desk.
Yes, there's an email that we received this morning from the Watershed Center regarding the Culver Meadows proposal. And that's it.
That's the only one?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We'll be talking about that in a little while, so we'll keep that handy. Okay, reports. Molly, anything from the town board?
Yeah, we started some discussion about the possibility of hiring a manager and changing the job description for the supervisor. So we have started that. Not sure we can get it done before people file for the next election, but we'll try. I think we will have to have made a decision by, I think it's end of April is that filing deadline. So
Gotcha. Okay.
that's it.
Molly, I'm just curious, I know that it's very common downstate for townships of our size to have managers, but I don't know that many townships in northwest Michigan have managers.
Well, we're the biggest.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing, but once we got up past that $5 million budget, I think board members were a little concerned about that continuity there, because everybody runs all at the same time. So the whole board could be replaced, and you got 20,000 people, $5 million budget, and you got all new people there. So having a manager, I think, protects the taxpayers in the township, and so I hope we can work it out.
Cool, that's what I expected to hear, so
Yeah.
glad to hear you guys are working on that.
All right, planning commissioners, ZBA. Bob, anything from the ZBA?
Yes, we had, excuse me, we had a meeting, excuse me, in January where we elected officers for the year and the calendar for this coming year. And that was it. No
Okay.
other business.
Chris, anything from Parks and Rec?
I don't think I have anything to report. John or Steve, can you think of anything?
We reported the last meeting, yeah, and our next one is February 5th, so.
Okay.
No, I can ask John on the joint planning.
We're going to have our quarterly meeting in about 3 weeks, so not at the study session, but at our first meeting in February. I can probably fill you in on whatever we do.
Okay. All right, staff. I see the,
We have our planning department monthly report for January 2024 that was provided to, in addition to yourselves, was provided to the township board in the meeting packet for yesterday evening. I just wanted to make a continued announcement to the public that there's master plan information is still available on our website as we go through this process. And actually, have Steve mentioned about a webinar that he attended this afternoon?
Yeah, we both listened in on MSU Extension had a webinar on renewable energy siting after the legislation at the end of the last session about having the large renewable energy permitting go through the state directly. It was a state preemption issue that happened right in November. There was some language put in there about also coordinating with local units of government if they have a compatible renewable energy ordinance, to which our first question is what constitutes that? And I think they're still asking that question too. So kind of the interpretation is still out there, but we'll keep tabs on that. And if we need to do anything, we can bring it back to the study session at some point.
Yeah, it should, just to get some sense of the scale of these types of projects, they did provide us some sense of that, because, what is a large-scale solar farm? You're talking, something upwards of like 400 acres. And then the wind farms tend to be much larger and can go over multi-jurisdictions. So I don't see these types of operations necessarily coming into Garfield Township. They could be elsewhere, potentially in the county, but just on the scale of some of those, at least initially. Nonetheless, we're going to be following up on this and making sure that we have all the protections there that are necessary to deal with potentially some of these facilities.
all right. Thank you. And You also have master plan announcement, did you want to?
Yeah, just that people can access that information on the township website.
The link was in the last township newsletter, and now that we have study sessions, again, we'll be talking about it at the next study session in 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, well, moving on, the first, item 6, unfinished business. The first item under unfinished business is the item A, PD 2024-3, the Commercial District Housing Development Amendment, and then it's a public hearing. So, John or Steve, you want to?
Yeah, as you recall, this was actually introduced at the meeting last month, the regular meeting of the Planning Commission, and this is for an amendment to Section 725, Commercial District Housing Development, which allows residential dwellings, primarily multifamily dwellings in the CG General Commercial, CH Highway Commercial, and the CP Planned Shopping Center District. And with permitting that use as a special use, there are some requirements in there, and we're trying to amend the portion that relates to a parking area that shall not be located within any setback, and that the proposed language would remove that requirement and allow flexibility in parking areas similar to other site plans. The other change to 725 deals with the where open space is located on the site, and the proposed language would basically reference the design requirements and general criteria as set forth in the planned unit residential developments. And this echoes similar language that's already in that section 725, so it gives the flexibility to the Planning Commission in terms of location where the open space that's required for the commercial district housing developments is located. So this is an amendment to the zoning ordinance. This is a process where there is a public hearing required. The next step would be then this would have to go to the town board for consideration.
All right, well, this is a public hearing, so at this time, we'll open it up to the public to come forward and ask any questions or address this item. Doesn't look like anybody's here to discuss this item, so we will close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for discussion or action.
Seems like we looked at this pretty carefully the last couple of meetings, and the what's in the report tonight is consistent with what we looked at and liked in the last report, unless I missed something.
Yeah, we've actually discussed this a couple of different times, so.
So I'll make a motion that the proposed amendment to the Garfield Township zoning ordinance as attached to Planning Department Report 2024-3 be recommended for adoption by the Township Board.
Support. Motion made and supported to approve zoning, the amendment to the zoning ordinance 2024-3 on that report. So any other further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. There's something for the town board at the next meeting.
Oh, good.
On the agenda.
We need more.
Yeah. All right. Unfinished business, item B, PD Report 2024-4, the letter R1 rezoning, findings of fact.
Steve covered that item?
So this is application for rezoning for a piece of property. Address is 4220 Eastwood Drive, just off of South Airport, on the curve west of 31 on the way to Silver Lake Road. You've seen this a couple times. We had a public hearing at the previous meeting. And the only thing that would be different is that kind of information that was gathered is organized into draft findings of fact. For your review, the major things were that it appeared to match the future land use map and other goals of the master plan and the other factors for consideration of a rezoning. So the draft motions are to adopt the findings of fact and forward on to the township board.
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments? about this one? You know, we've discussed this a lot of times. When a zoning, you know, amendment or a rezoning request comes to us, you know, we don't question what they're going to do or anything like that. But I want to bring up the fact that in both the introduction packet, the public hearing packet, and this one, there's an old survey in here. And so we can only assume, because that survey is included, that the intention is to split the lot, which is, I don't have any problem with the rezoning. It's compatible, it all makes sense. But we brought up, and I just want to, for the record, ask again, if they were to split this, whose decision would it be to, where would the access be? And I know we've asked and answered this, I think, but is it up to the County Road Commission, or is it up to us?
We have our standards in the zoning ordinance as well, and the access would be off of Eastward Drive.
Okay.
They'd have to do a shared drive or private road or something of that effect.
I mean, normally we wouldn't bring it up because we wouldn't
Right.
have this, you know, but this survey is upwards of, 17 years old. It's
Yeah.
18 years old now, almost, and, but it doesn't show that shared drive. That's why. I brought it up.
Right.
So, okay. But I just want to make sure that was addressed.
Absolutely.
All right, well, looks like according to the report, all the findings have been met, and we didn't have any opposition at the public hearing. Nobody spoke to it, so.
I'm not hearing anybody say that they don't think any of the findings are accurate. So I'll go ahead and make the motion then that the findings of fact for application Z 2023-03 submitted by Dan Lederer to rezone parcel 05-020-004-10 located at 4220 Eastward Drive from the A agricultural zoning district to the R1 one-family residential zoning district be as presented in Planning Department Report 2024-4 and being made part of this motion be adopted.
Support?
Motion made and supported to adopt the findings of fact for Z 2023-03. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Make the second one, too.
I can, doing more talking than I thought I would be, not being the chair anymore. All right, I'll make the motion that we recommend to the Township Board that application Z 2023-03 submitted by Dan Lederer to rezone parcel 05-020-004-10 located at 4220 Eastward Drive from the A agricultural zoning district to the R1 one-family residential zoning district be approved.
Support. Motion been made and supported to recommend to the town board the approval of application Z 2023-03. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Moving on, our next item is under new business, and that is the introduction of PD 2024-5, Culver Meadows Senior Living Condominium, conditional rezoning, conditional rezoning.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Brad Jewett. This is my wife, Trina. Our boy Connor is here also. We have in front of you guys tonight here our request for a conditional rezoning. We listened to you back in November when we had our conceptual review there with you, and I think we made the necessary adjustments to justify this request and everything. And I think if you look at the packet that's been presented in front of you, I think we definitely have met those requirements and everything. So we are here to see if we can move forward with this project at some point in time.
Make some comments. Sure. So, as Brad mentioned, you had a conceptual review, so you've seen this a little bit prior, back in November. Now, they've presented a formal application for your consideration. When we talked with the applicant. One of the things we thought is it's important to understand how the existing facility was put into place, because it was established under the previous zoning ordinance, which had a definition for institutions for human care, which would have been permitted in that district at that time by special use permit. So that's how that current facility was established. When the ordinance was redone in 2025, a lot of that definition of institutions for human care was replaced by different definitions, including the adult foster care home definition, which follows the state statutes and so forth. So there was some changes, and it was limited from that, or not provided in that R1 district. So what we thought would be appropriate is to recognize that existing facility as part of this conditional rezoning request. So it's for 2 parcels. It's that one on that existing facility, and then the second one is for the facility in the back. There's kind of a front parcel that faces Silver Lake Road, and then this one's to the rear. So combined, those are roughly 5.14 acres, but it's for 2 parcels to conditionally rezone them from R1, one-family residential, to A, agriculture. So it's essentially, it's a down zone. And it would be for, based on what they're providing, it would be for 2 different uses. A large group home for adult foster care, and then also a child care center. So a child care center is essentially a commercial operation, daycare type of thing. We have other daycares, but those are identified for single-family homes. Child care centers are similar to what we've seen on a couple applications for like churches that have church operations, but happen to add in a child care center for weekly operation. This is in relation to one of the reasons they're including the child care center as part of this is to provide child care, daycare services to employees for their that are operating in their facility, their current facility and their proposed facility. So the consideration here is for conditional rezoning, and that means that the applicant provides certain restrictions. In this case, those conditions would be, it's a request to rezone to A, agriculture, but the only uses that would be permitted on this site as a condition offered by the applicant would be limiting it to large group home for adult foster care and the child care center. There are considerations that we look at, looking at the master plan. This area is for low-density residential. This is a request to actually go down zone it to agriculture. If for some reason this were to cease operation, it would revert back to the R1 residential that's already in place. So there are criteria and conditions that we look at. There are site development requirements, and we've provided that information to you in some of the standards in the report that are part of the conditional rezoning application. And one of the things why the rezoning that you saw previously is just a map change. The difference in the conditional rezoning, as the ordinance requires it, is there's also a site development plan that's as part of this. So in addition to the rezoning, you're also looking at a site development plan. So there are standards that we are looking at in the ordinance that are for the application for the conditional rezoning, but then we also include development standards that are part of the site plan. So you'll see things in there related to things like access management and parking and so forth. In our review of it, I think for the most part, we felt that this really meets some of the intent of the master plan for this area, even though this is down zone. Some of the intensity of the use might be higher, but looking at this in terms of what they're proposing along Silver Lake Road, it is a county road. They are not adding any additional curb cuts to it, It's while it might be considered a more intensive use to some degree, it's actually pretty similar to what would be in character of that area. By the building itself and structure, these tend to be fairly quiet operations. They are 24 hours in that they're providing services to the residents there, but they are pretty quiet from that standpoint. In looking at the site plan, for the most part, there's a lot of items that were provided that meet the requirement. We did identify, though, in our report, some things that still need to be added in there. Probably the things that really we'd like to see added into that site development plan to make sure that we have that in there is some of the natural features in the area, just to make sure that they conform with our setback requirements. We've also requested that they have some of the topographic information which will be necessary for the stormwater review by the engineer that will be kind of parallel to this process. The other items are pretty minor, snow storage area, just identifying some of the dimensional requirements in terms of the layout of the parking spaces and driveways. There is an existing easement that provides access to that rear parcel. We just want to make sure that that's correctly identified on there. It may need to be amended just because the width of the lot width in the ag, it happens to be 10 feet wider, so it may need to be extended. Also, some other items in there, some landscaping items, lighting plan, and so forth. But at this point, we see it's pretty much is overall, in terms of the layout, is for the most part, I think, in good condition.
I do want to add to that we do know the site plan is not complete. We figured to get to this phase, we would give you the information that we could. Right now, I did have the perk test done 2 days ago, so the rest of the engineering on the site plan can size a proper drain field and everything like that. We had elevation shot 2 weeks ago and everything by the surveyor. That's been all turned over to Ryan Cox, who is doing the site plan and everything like that. So we will have a very detailed site plan that has everything on there that is required, probably even more information than what's required and everything. So, but we do know coming to this point, we did not spend all the money to get every single detail on it right up till now, so.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
John, do they have to go to the road commission because of the increased traffic flow or not?
They're not, so they're not adding another curb cut, so that does not apply, but for the intensity of the use, I don't think they would have to go to the road commission for that. I don't know, that would be a question for them.
Yeah, I don't know what their requirements are when you would increase the usage of the existing driveways, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, we can look into that. I mean, that would be something that would be a requirement of the road commission. I mean, I think they would appreciate not having an additional curb cut, but yeah, I don't know if
Sure
that
they
just.
would.
But the activity in vehicles, we can check with them.
I did talk to the road commission manager here a couple weeks ago and told him what we were doing and asked if they needed to review it or if they wanted to review it. And he said since there was no additional curb cut that they probably would not be required to, but they would look at it if I wanted. So I've already had that discussion with the new manager up there.
Thank you.
Doesn't seem to me like there'd be that much extra traffic that it's gonna trigger anything significant with the road.
Well, but I don't know the conditions on the original permit. Having spent a lot of years in that business, a lot of counties require that. When you add the capacity, I want to look at it again, that's all.
One thing that I wasn't sure was the location of that easement, that you said it's 100 feet, but it might have to go to 110, and I didn't get my packet in the mail, I had to download it off the net, and maybe it's in a site plan somewhere, but where is that easement?
So it's,
It is on the west side of that front parcel, so it'd be on the east side of the parcel we would like to develop. It's right on the property line
Right
there.
on the line?
Yeah, it's right on the
Two
line.
parcels. It makes sense, but I just
Yeah.
didn't see it anywhere.
yeah, it, it kind of runs so it's coming off of Silver Lake Road. You see a dashed, kind of a dashed line, and then on two sides of that dashed line, you'll see kind of solid lines.
Yep.
So that is the easement coming. It basically follows the driveway currently off of Silver Lake Road, and then it basically takes a 90-degree turn and goes up to the back side of that front parcel, and then doesn't quite go over, and it basically dead ends. So what would need to be done is essentially extend that another 10 feet in the description. Because that basically, with these, I mean, essentially kind of landlocked parcels, the easement provides the frontage and the requirement for
Okay,
that.
thanks.
So I think it can easily be accommodated. It would require a newly recorded easement, though, for that. And it should be a little bit more clear identified on the actual site plan, but it's more or less just, that was the difference between the R1 and the Ag District.
So the conditional rezoning will be tied, the site plan, when it's final, will be tied right to it.
Correct.
So nothing can be changed in the future that's not on that site plan. That's correct?
Right, it can be amended, it would have to
Can be
come,
amended.
have to come through the process for amendment on that.
And then, Brad, have you seen this letter from the watershed?
Yeah, John just gave me a copy here right before the meeting started,
So there's not a problem with that drain field being too close, or?
Nope, I mean, I have not staked it and actually measured stake to stake, but I've done some preliminary measurements and everything, and we will more than exceed all the required setbacks.
Okay, thanks.
And not only that, we have to. I mean, we have to meet them setbacks and stuff, but we will exceed them.
Brad, and that's from what I'm looking at here, these little ponds?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you know, this particular parcel, when the water is the highest in them ponds, it's maybe 18 inches onto our property and stuff. But all of our properties has stakes, you know, line stakes and corner stakes, T-post in there, and we can get to all of them without stepping in water 99% of the time of the year, you know. I mean,
Water frontage.
yeah. No, it's there is some wet land in that one area. But like I said, I mean, it's literally the size of a wheelbarrow where it creeps on tires when the water's high.
I think from just looking at, from what we know, we're not really concerned about the adult foster care building itself. The only one that potentially could be an issue is the daycare center where that's located on that site. But the adult foster care center is well over 100 feet from the back end, so we didn't really see concern with that one at all.
We're
Yeah,
just
and
seeing this
actually
letter
we're
for the
the-
first time tonight. Have you responded to these people at all with their questions?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
already did? Okay.
Yeah, I think part of this is we're still getting the information, so when we get that from the applicant, we can evaluate that. But yeah, and I mentioned that we would be passing this on, and I think, like I mentioned, that would just be their main concern, would be the daycare center, so.
Okay.
Yep, and even where the daycare center is, we are more than 75 feet away from the edge of any of that wetter ground and everything, so. And like when I've talked to the guy that originally designed this, we do realize if we have to, we can shift that building a little bit still. But we already know, because we've looked at it and he measured stuff before he actually put it on paper, that we will definitely exceed that, so. I know the site plan does not have the measurements on there right now, and I know that. I knew that going into tonight and everything, so.
Sounds like you got enough room if you had to maneuver a little bit. There's
Yeah, we
plenty
do.
of room.
We have room. I mean, we've, without staking it out, we've kind of walked it out and marked corners. My boy and I did that this summer and everything, and looked to see where we wanted to position everything. And, I mean, part of that was because we wanted to align driveways, current driveways, with what would be existing, or new driveways, so it doesn't look like a zigzag puzzle going through there, so.
Considering this is an introduction, it's a pretty detailed introduction, more than what we normally have, because technically we looked at it, a month ago, so. Anybody else have any comments or questions for the applicant? I mean, I'm not hearing any opposition to it, so I think, move forward, I'd feel comfortable moving forward. When they come for the public hearing, they'd be required to have the detailed site plan, all those other things, you'll let them know what
Yep.
they need.
Yeah, we've already talked with them about it, and they got a little extra time here because we have an additional Wednesday in January, so really they got about good 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks to get the information to us in time for the February meeting when we have the public hearing.
And we will make sure that that information is turned in before the last minute, in case there's any questions or anything. The guy that's actually finishing the site plan, I spoke to him today, and he asked me how much time we had, and I said, I don't know when the deadline is, but I would imagine it's no more than 2 weeks from now. As John just mentioned, it's about 3.5 weeks, but I told Ryan there, I said it's probably 2 weeks or less before our deadline, and he said he would make it happen. So my anticipation is as soon as I get it in my hands, I will turn it into these guys. They can look it over. If there's something that we have to correct, then we will have enough time to correct that before the February public hearing.
We don't do a lot of conditional rezonings.
No.
So you're comfortable with the conditions the applicant presented?
Yes.
Because I understand, these aren't our conditions. In conditional rezoning, they have to come from the applicant. We can't even tweak them or recommend changes to them. They have to come from the applicant. So I just want to make sure staff's comfortable with them.
Yeah.
So,
We are.
So on the plan that you bring to us next during the public hearing, that'll have exact square footage of both the adult foster home and the daycare?
Yes, it'll have everything on there. I can tell you for a fact right now, the adult foster care is going to be the same exact square footage as what we have right now, so
I
that's
just
not
wanted
going to
to
change.
know if it was going to be on that print.
Yes, it will be. Yep, and that'll be 10,176 square feet. That building will be. The daycare, right now, as long as we're working on the plans to make sure we have, and the daycare portion of it is new to us, so we're learning some of that. The square footages for sleeping and activities and all that, we got to make sure how that's going to fit in there for sure to have the final building size, but right now we're looking at a 1,200 square foot building, 30 by 40. That could possibly change depending on once we finish digging into the rules, because even though child care is a lot alike of what we're doing now, there's a lot of difference too and stuff. So we just need to make sure that everything that's required to be in the building fits within a 1,200 square foot building.
So if they brought us 1,200 and then a year from now, we go to build it and it don't work, what would they do to amend it? Would it be a special use permit?
So it depends on what is actually being changed. There are some abilities to do administrative amendments or minor or major amendments. If it's within, I believe it's 10%, Steve, or 15?
For,
Like area changes in the building size. It's like if it's a small enough percentage change in the square footage.
to qualify for administrative or minor
Yeah.
amendment, yeah, there's kind of those standards. I think it's 15%.
Yeah, 15%.
Shifts in location or change in size of 15%.
So it'd kind of be just like your PUD in a way, if it's small enough change, you do it yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if
Mhm.
it's something more substantial, like alteration to it, or sizable enough, or, adding additional use into there or something like that, they would have to come back through that would be a major amendment and would require a, full review process all over again.
Thanks.
And Joe, our thoughts right now are we want to make sure we know what all the requirements are, build the building size that we need, and be done. We don't want to look back 18 months from now and say, dang it, we should have added 120 square feet or something. I mean, we don't want to overbuild it, but we don't want to underbuild it to have to tear something up again, because you know how that is and stuff. But so that is our intent. But I'm not gonna lie, there's things up front that we need to learn with the daycare, because it's a whole separate set of rules than what we do now. So
I have a question or two. Back to the issue of what you brought up, Joe, about the conditions. So I just reread them again, and it occurs to me, does the township do the recording with the Register of Deeds, or is that something that the applicant is required to do?
Typically, I believe it would be the applicant.
Okay.
It'd be approval, but I think it would be the applicant.
So in here, it says twice that the township will do recording, and maybe that might be appropriate to edit. And then.
Well, we'll double check on that.
We'll double check.
I've seen it both ways, Chris. I've seen it in different townships. I'm not saying specific to Garfield. I've seen it where the townships do the recording because they want to make sure everything is right. Because sometimes us property owners don't get it right and stuff. But I've also seen it where property owners do the recording and everything too. So, I mean, if the township does it, fine. If we have to do it, fine. You know,
Sure.
whatever we have to do.
I figured you're probably indifferent,
Yeah. So.
given the grand scheme of everything else. And then condition number 2, the property shall not be used for any use or special use not permitted by Charter Township of Garfield zoning ordinance for the agricultural district. And if I understand correctly, we're conditionally rezoning it for specifically the 20-bed adult foster care and the large group daycare, and that's the only use within the agricultural district that it would be allowed to be used for. Is that correct? If it was used for something else, it would be outside of the conditional rezone.
Right, I think you rezone conditionally rezone to a district and then pare down to what you're going to do would be the kind of way we've seen it in the past, like.
So I think the intent, overall, I see that the intent of the conditions is, on par with our expectations, I believe. But is this something that the township attorney would review for clarity?
Should.
Yeah,
We could ask, yeah.
we can ask, yeah.
Almost repetitive, you're saying, because we're conditionally rezoning it to only allow this use, but then we also say that it can't be any use that's not allowed in that rezoning district. It kind of contradicts it a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. But again, I think the intent is there. It's just, some revision of the language.
Yeah, it's worth looking at.
Yeah.
I kind of like the filing, let's just get it right. We don't do a lot of these, so let's make sure we get it right, so.
Yeah, I'd echo that too. It sounds like everybody's on the same page intent-wise, but when there's some final document that's going to be recorded and we're not even going to see it, that ought to be looked at, in my humble opinion, by one of the legal beagles that says this is what ought to be recorded. And it shouldn't be a big, expensive proposition for them to do it, but we ought to have those eyes putting it together. And us lay people shouldn't be doing the paperwork. It should be somebody that drafts those things.
And when I put that together, that was language I've seen from other applicants,
Okay.
so that's why if we got to tweak that wording, then,
That's what I'm thinking. It's,
Yeah.
maybe you don't, I don't know, but
yeah, so.
Well, if nobody else has any other comments, I'll make the motion that application Z 2023-04 be scheduled for public hearing for the February 14th, 2024 Planning Commission regular meeting, subject to the applicant providing additional information as stated in the Planning Department Report 2024-5, and in the completeness review for this application dated December 12th, 2023. And I'm going to add, as further discussed at tonight's meeting.
Support?
All right, motion made and supported to schedule a public hearing for application Z 2023-04. Any other further discussion on that? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, everyone.
See you in a few weeks. All right, moving on, our next item of business is our second public comment. So again, we open it up for public comment at this time, if anybody wants to come forward and tell us whatever they'd like to tell us. They're not beating a path to the microphone, so we will go ahead and close public comment and ask if there's any other business. Staff, any other business tonight?
Nothing like it.
No.
Anybody have any other business they'd like to bring up? Okay. Item 10 is items for our next agenda on January 24th. It'll be our first study session of 2024. We have a master plan update, review of the completed draft, and then a 2023 Planning Commission annual report.
And actually, with regards to the master plan as well, since I know at some of the last couple of meetings we were talking about trying to get some additional opportunities for community engagement, this might be a good opportunity at this time. As staff, we were thinking of maybe trying to do like an open house right before the Plan Commission, about 5 to 6:30. Do a press release for it, and just sort of have the information here, have the kind of current master plan, future land use map, have what's proposed, what we've been talking about as Plan Commission, and since especially at this study session, we're sort of, it's the review of the complete, what we kind of call the rough draft. By the time February comes around, we'll have all the Plan Commissioners' feedback. If we have public feedback as well, we can turn around in February and be here's now incorporating everyone's feedback, and make that's the more kind of vetted and reviewed draft. And then we're anticipating a joint meeting in March with the Township Board, which would be good to, at that point, if possible, to have, here's the draft that's been reviewed by Plan Commission and the public. Here's what we are proposing to put out for the official kind of review and adoption period at that time. So it might work out really well to try to do an open house sort of in advance of the study session next week. Is that something you'd be interested in or think might be good to try to do?
Yeah, just a couple of things on that. Can we come up with a sheet that shows people the difference between the last one and this one? So they don't have to be looking through. They're not going to be very familiar with things. I know we have some pictures up here on the wall, but maybe next to those you can say, okay, well, this is what we're proposing here, so that it's very clear to them what those changes are. They're not.
Right, especially some of the major things we've talked about, some of the future land use categories, or some new future land use categories, so kind of what was the impetus for thinking of this and what might that lead to. Yeah, I think that'd be good to kind of do a comparison. And we can do like an open house, you can have as some open hours, but then say have a like little presentation as part of it. So if you're there at that time, you can have it sort of, here's an overview of everything that's going on. So yeah, I think that'd be a great idea.
You know, one of the things we're trying to do is avoid having kind of pretty much the plan all buttoned up and then start this
Right.
kind of review process. So and then by statute, you're required to conduct a public hearing, and then we get feedback, we're hearing from the public about some portion of it. And why this plan is pretty much, I'd say probably 90% plus in place, this is a good time for people that it's enough of that where you can see the structure of it and makes a lot of sense of what the plan document is. But it's still at a point in the process where if there is something where we want to make some major change or adjustment to it, this is a good time to do it. And so we just want to afford people some additional opportunity to come in. We can have the meeting right here in this room. As Steve mentioned, we'd probably do a presentation. If we're running this from 5 to 6:30, maybe at 6 p.m., we would just do like a 10, 15-minute overview. We could have the table set up with the future land use map currently, future land use map as proposed, and we can it's basically just discussion and opportunity for us to get some feedback, for the plan document.
Thoughts on that? All good? What was your time? When did you want to do that?
We thought it'd be before your study session in 2 weeks, so we start at 5 p.m.
Okay.
And you're welcome to be here. If you're not, that's, no big deal. We'd probably run it from 5 p.m. to 6:30 on January 24th.
Do it on that as part of our next meeting. Okay.
Yeah, and then, because your next agenda for your study session on the 24th is really basically going to be the master plan, so it'd be just good timing. We can get kind of debrief about what some of the comments that we've heard. We'll send out a press release on this. Maybe we'll do also a public notice. It's not a public hearing, it's just an open house, but we could do something like that just to alert people of what's happening out there, and, more than welcome to come in here and take a review of the plan.
And let them know it's their master plan, our master plan, not-
Absolutely.
not this group.
Exactly, yep. That's who we want to
Sounds
have
good.
the buy-in from. And we want to get as much feedback as possible. Planning commissioners, you did give us feedback last time, even just to start, and we did already start drafting some things. The Hartman-Hammond section, I think, was one of the big ones, which is very good catch. And even us just taking a look at it, we also have made some notes and drafted some things as well, because after we put it together and sat on it for a little bit, we opened it up again. It's like, oh wait, this would be good to have in here, or why was it written like that? So we'll have a lot to discuss at the next meeting, I'm sure.
Now, the 5 to 6:30 wouldn't be a meeting, or we wouldn't call that to order or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Strictly an open house. Staff will man it, and just will be here and provide. We'll have, in addition to maps, we'll have the screen. We can put. We have a lot of maps, background information that we've. Actually, we have assigned a few additional maps.
I think we're up to
but
23 now.
we're up to 23 maps. But that's like in the appendix, so don't
Yeah.
worry about it. But we'll actually have some printed, the current master plan and we'll have some printed copies so people can get their hands on it, and we can mark those up and go from there.
All right. Just remind me, I know we just approved our meeting agenda. Is that the March joint meeting, is that our first meeting or our second meeting?
It's the second meeting.
Second meeting.
It's the study session.
Right.
What we usually do is have your study session be the host meeting, and the
Right.
town board joins you.
Right, I remember that, it was
Yeah.
one of our meetings. I just didn't,
Yeah.
I just, off the top of my head, couldn't remember if it was our first meeting or our second meeting.
Yep. So it'll be that fourth Wednesday in March.
That's the 27th?
27th, yep.
It's spring break week.
Spring break week.
I'm out of town. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna be gone the whole month of March, but
It's fine.
Should
It's my
we,
senior
that's,
should we
I'm
edit
gone for the whole
that?
month.
spring break.
Doesn't matter whether it's the first meeting or the second meeting for me, unless, if there was some Zoom thing, I suppose I could zoom in, but
Russ was
I don't
looking
think
at
it would
March.
that may
Yeah.
not be a really good
We're
one
gonna
to
be
down
here.
either.
I'll be here, so we'll still have 5 of us, I guess.
And
Yeah.
just so you know, in the process, so we just see, okay, couple weeks, we have the open house, we have discussion here. The goal is to get it in a pretty good position for that plan when you see it at the end of February. That's the plan then we're gonna share with the town board and say, look, this is ready to go out for formal review. Town board joint meeting with the planning commission at the end of March. From there, then it actually goes through the formal review process where we have to send it out to our neighboring jurisdictions. Comes back, we'll probably wrap that process up in June, and there'll be a public hearing and adoption by the town board. So there is that joint meeting, but the process is far from done. Like I said, we're probably wrapping this up in June at the earliest. So,
Sounds good. Okay, well, it'll be a busier evening than we were expecting. Earlier, but busier. All right. You want us to be here for that open house?
it's totally up to you if you want to engage and hear from the public. It's like I said, it's an open house. People can come and go and at any time. You're more than welcome to come in early, but you're not,
Yeah, okay.
We'll probably summarize what we hear for that discussion later in your study session that evening.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else for that,
I'd make a motion, we adjourn.
all right, we are adjourned.